Let's start with Teri Matthews. Teri, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, Teri, give us a little background on yourself, and then let's get into what is autism spectrum disorder.
So I am a serial entrepreneur is what I've been called, and I have worked in a variety of industries. I've also been coined the Olivia Pope of business that doesn't sleep with presidents, just to be clear. But I work in a variety of capacities, basically serving in a variety of industries as a CEO, and I also own several companies myself. Healthcare, environmental companies, tech companies, restaurants. I've been the vice president of a major record label, so I've done quite a bit.
Great. What is autism spectrum disorder?
So autism spectrum disorder is simply known as unique characteristics that can come from anything from social communication, which are the two biggest characteristics that are seen on individuals on the spectrum. Some kids with autism range from speaking, being very verbal, to also being nonverbal. And autism impacts every family. We say that autism does discriminate, so it is found in every ethnicity, gender, doesn't matter about socioeconomic background. And more importantly than that is that autism has no cure. So the reason why that's important is because we have to create more awareness so we can support those individuals, because autistic children grow up to be autistic adults, and so we have to be able to know how to accommodate them.
Tell us what Jadens Voice does.
So Jadens Voice is a nonprofit organization. We work to enhance the lives of individuals impacted by autism, and what that means is that autistic individuals can have a variety of services they're receiving, everything from speech to behavioral to occupational therapy. We used to provide a lot of those services or bridge the gap to families receiving those services because it's costly and there's waiting lists, and we were there to support families from that perspective. But we spend a lot of time advocating for our families and making sure that also that the parents aren't forgotten about as well.
You have a television show that you're going to bring out, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's true.
Tell us about that.
So On the Spectrum is a talk show that's around all things autism. We will be talking to all of the community and showing all of the community how things are applicable to them, whether they have a kid on the spectrum or not. But more importantly for us, the talk show is centered around the families that deal with the day-to-day lives of their children who are diagnosed with autism. And we have do-it-yourself projects, things that you could do at home that are affordable and feasible. We talk about mindfulness and how, not to forget yourself when you have a kid that's diagnosed with something that's not curable. We laugh, we talk about their talents and their gifts, and again, we try to make sure that we're not forgetting about the families, because oftentimes a lot of things that we deal with when it comes to autism, it's the person that's diagnosed and not the family that's supporting them.
Hi, Teri. I'm Ed Baxter of Bison Creek Capital, and I happen to have a niece who's autistic, so I've seen this up close and personal, and I think it's important that you look at the opportunity to certify people who have I guess for lack of a better term, the ability to deal with this, because it is a challenge when you suddenly have it and you realize it and you realize what's going on and you look for resources that are designed to help. And I know that with my sister, we've looked at a number of different resources. You are right. There are areas where it's difficult to actually get people who fully understand how to deal with an autistic child. And, the public school systems or in certain types of private schools or whatever aren't necessarily equipped to do so. How does autism, or how does Jadens Voice go out and look to equip people to understand how to deal with this issue?
So it's interesting that you say that, just so that you know the history of why we even call it Jadens Voice. Jaden is my son who is autistic, and being a CEO and responsible, for millions and millions of dollars at the time, in addition to being a serial entrepreneur, I knew firsthand the difficulties, too, of just making sure that Jaden had access to care, making sure that the school systems understood how to manage a child with these types of needs. And you're right, not every school system has the support nor the economic nor the financing or that they can support these kids, right? So there's a lot of issues there. But what we do is we also train at Jadens Voice. So we do a lot of things. We have something known on our website called Jadens Friend. And what we're doing right now, we've piloted it, but our goal is globally to put people in here. So if you need to go to a church, if you want to go to a barbershop, if you want to go to an amusement park, families can connect with places, whether it be restaurants, churches, barbershops, whatever, activity centers, whatever it is, they can connect with people who are already trained and know how to accommodate families that are on the spectrum. So that's our goal with one of our areas called Jaden's Friend. And again, it puts like-minded people within a network where even from a financial perspective, we have a lot of two-parent family households where one parent quits their job and now they're living on a reduced income. You know, what things can they do, right, to support? They still have other children sometimes in these households. They still have other financial responsibilities. What do they need to do to continue to move life and not lose themselves? Because we have a lot of families that fall in depression as well.
I can identify with that, having a younger sister dealing with this. How do you equip institutions to be able to understand this? Because I know that in churches I've gone to, in different places I've gone to, it's very difficult for people to understand autism. So as an entity and as an advocate, what things do you see that are best equipped in our organization to be able to deal with an autistic child?
Mainly training. So one thing we have to share with people is autistic children are like snowflakes, right? They're new two children that look alike. Sometimes, you know, people will think about the movie Rain Man, you know, and say, okay, that's autism, or they have a relative, and that relative might have a nonverbal child on the spectrum. So if somebody's verbal, they don't understand, well, that kid can't have autism because they're speaking. So one way we go into organizations is that we train them. We show them what autism can look like, right? And we also explain over and over and over how autism looks different in every household. And then in addition to that, we equip them with what are the necessary tools to deal with the unique characteristics that autistic families have challenges with, and what challenges the autistic individual might go through. So, for example, at churches, when we train there, that training looks completely different than when we train at a restaurant, which looks completely different than when we train at a barbershop. But, for example, we might go into a church and we'll teach the greeters, like, okay, this is not a child who might want to be hugged. It's not that autistic children don't, you know, and I squirm around on my feet saying that because I don't want people to think, oh, autistic people don't want to be hugged. That's not true. There are some kids that don't like to be touched. So we will explain to them how they should greet. You know, you're not going to get a pastor to stop banging a tambourine if he plays it, or preaching loud on a microphone. You know, there are things that we do in churches where we'll show them, like, these children or these parents want to be able to enjoy the service. So you might set up a separate room for these kids and have a live stream, you know, where these children can go in and they're not around the loud noise, the tambourines, the drums, the choir that could be singing. You can adjust the sound. There are just different things that we teach depending upon the environment so that they can help. Like at stadiums, now we have 2 stadiums that have rooms that are focused on parents who bring their kids to the game who are autistic. They can't sit in the crowd and deal with all the clapping and loud noise. So they have a room that has reduction in sound. It's very autism friendly. There's an area where they can stim, an area where they can rock, but the parent can still enjoy the sporting event and at the same time bring their kids. So it just depends. It just depends on the environment.
Teri, thanks for being a guest on the show. Really appreciate that. Contact info for our audience to reach out to you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So you can reach us at www.jadensvoice.org, and that's JADENSVOIC.org. Our phone number is 800-825-8950. And, you know, we're always looking to find out what we can do to come in and train and support. So if anybody's organization out there needs training or support or would like to become a Jadens Friend, please log on to our website.
Thank you, Teri.
Thank you.
All right, Teri Matthews, Jadens Voice. We'll be right back on the other side of this break with the Private Equity Spotlight and Ed Baxter.